The sea was restless that night. Waves crashed violently against the cliffs of the kingdom, like they were trying to warn the world that something was about to change. Inside the grand palace, Queen Isabella stood alone on her balcony. Her crown rested perfectly on her head, but her heart felt empty. She ruled an entire kingdom, yet she had never truly lived. Every decision was duty, every breath was responsibility, and love. Love was a luxury she was never allowed to have. Until that night, a sudden flash of lightning split the sky, and in that moment, she saw it. A ship, dark, massive, sailing dangerously close to the kingdom's forbidden shores. No flags of alliance, no royal markings, only one symbol, a black sail. Her breath caught. Pirates, she whispered. Within minutes, the palace guards were alerted. Torches lit the shoreline. Soldiers rushed into formation. But Queen Isabella didn't move. She couldn't. Something about that ship pulled her closer. As chaos unfolded below, a smaller boat broke away from the massive vessel. One man stepped onto the shore, alone, fearless. The guards surrounded him instantly, swords drawn, voices shouting. But he didn't fight. He didn't run. He simply stood there, like he owned the storm itself. Moments later, he was brought into the palace. The grand doors opened, heavy, echoing, and there he stood, before her, Captain Adrian Blackwood, the most feared pirate on the seas, a man whispered about in legends, a name that made kings uneasy. And yet, he looked at her like none of that mattered, like she wasn't a queen, just a woman. Their eyes met, and in that single moment, something shifted. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice calm, almost amused. Isabella straightened, hiding the sudden racing of her heart. "You dare step onto my land uninvited," she said coldly. A faint smirk touched his lips. "I didn't come for your land." A pause. "I came for something far more valuable." The room went silent. The guards tightened their grip on their swords. Isabella's eyes narrowed. And what could be more valuable than a kingdom? Adrian took a step closer, ignoring the danger, ignoring the guards. His gaze never left hers. "You." The word hit harder than any weapon. Gasps echoed through the hall. The queen of an entire empire, being claimed by a pirate. It was madness. It was dangerous. It was forbidden. And yet, her heart didn't reject it. It reacted. Fast. Wild. Alive. "Careful, Captain," she said, though her voice wasn't as steady as before. "You're standing in a place where men have been executed for far less." Adrian's smile deepened. "Then I suppose I'll have to make it worth the risk." Silence fell again. Heavy. Electric. For the first time in years, Queen Isabella felt something she couldn't control. Curiosity. Danger. Desire. Because this man, this reckless, fearless pirate, didn't see her as a crown. He saw her as something more. And that terrified her, as much as it intrigued her. But neither of them knew that this wasn't just a meeting. It was the beginning of a love that could destroy kingdoms, or change them forever. The palace was asleep, or at least, it was supposed to be. But Queen Isabella was wide awake. She stood in front of her mirror, her crown resting on the table beside her. For once, she wasn't dressed like a queen. No jewels, no heavy gowns, just a simple cloak, and a decision she couldn't take back. She shouldn't go. Every instinct told her it was dangerous, reckless, unforgivable. But his voice, his eyes, the way he had looked at her like she was more than a title, it refused to leave her mind. And so, she went. The hidden passage behind the palace led down toward the cliffs, a secret known only to the royal family, a path never meant for someone like him. The wind was colder outside, stronger, carrying the scent of the sea, and there he was, Captain Adrian Blackwood, standing at the edge of the shore like he had been waiting for her all along. "You came," he said softly. Isabella pulled her cloak tighter. "I shouldn't have. But you did." A step closer. Her heart reacted instantly. Faster. Louder. "This is madness," she whispered. "You're a pirate. I'm a queen." Adrian's gaze didn't waver. And yet, here we are. Silence fell between them. But it wasn't empty. It was charged. Dangerous. The kind of silence that pulled two people closer instead of pushing them apart. "Why did you really come?" she asked. Adrian took another step forward. Now, there was barely any space left between them. "Because you looked at me like you were already trapped," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "And I wanted to see if you'd dare to break free." The words hit something deep inside her. Something she had buried for years. "You don't know anything about my life," she said, though her voice softened. "Then tell me," he replied. Another step. Closer. Close enough for her to feel the warmth of him against the cold night air. "I don't need to tell you," she whispered. Adrian tilted his head slightly. A faint, knowing smile on his lips. "No," he said. "You just need to stop pretending you're not already thinking about leaving it." Her heart skipped. Because he was right. She turned away quickly, trying to regain control. But he reached out. Gently. His fingers brushed her wrist. This time, she didn't pull away. The world seemed to pause. The waves. The wind. Even her thoughts. "Tell me to let go," he said quietly. She didn't. Instead, she turned back to him. And for the first time, she wasn't looking at him like a threat. She was looking at him like a possibility. "You're dangerous," she said softly. Adrian's eyes darkened slightly. "Not to you." That was the moment everything changed. Because she believed him. And belief was far more dangerous than fear. The distance between them disappeared. Not rushed. Not forced. Just inevitable. Their foreheads nearly touched. Breath mixing in the cold night air. "Isabella," he murmured. No one had said her name like that before. Not as a title. Not as a duty. But as something real. Something wanted. Her hand slowly lifted, resting against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Alive. So different from the controlled world she lived in. "This can't happen," she whispered. Adrian didn't move away. "Then why does it feel like it already has?" Her breath trembled. Because deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't just attraction anymore. It was something deeper. Something that could ruin everything she had built. Or finally give her something real. But they weren't alone. From the shadows above the cliffs, unseen eyes watched them. And in that moment, what began as a secret meeting was about to become a dangerous game. Because loving a pirate wasn't just forbidden. It was deadly. The night should have stayed theirs. Hidden. Untouched by the world above. But secrets never stay buried for long. As Queen Isabella stepped back from Captain Adrian Blackwood, her breath still unsteady, a voice shattered the moment. "Your Majesty." Cold. Sharp. Unforgiving. They both turned. At the top of the cliff stood Lord Harrington, her most loyal advisor, and the most dangerous man in the kingdom when it came to betrayal. Guards surrounded him. Torches lit the darkness. Steel glinted in the firelight. And every single one of them had seen everything. Isabella's heart dropped. This wasn't just a mistake anymore. This was treason. "My queen," Harrington continued, stepping forward slowly, his gaze filled with quiet fury. "Care to explain why you are meeting a pirate? In secret?" Silence. The kind that suffocates. Adrian moved slightly in front of her. Instinct. Protection. But Isabella placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. "No," she said softly. "Because if he fought, he would die. And she couldn't let that happen." "I will handle this," she whispered to him. Adrian's jaw tightened. "I'm not leaving you to them," he said under his breath. "You might not have a choice," she replied quietly. Then she stepped forward, back into the role she had never truly left. The queen. Her posture straightened. Her expression hardened. The woman from moments ago. Gone. In her place stood a ruler. "You forget your place, Lord Harrington," she said coldly. But Harrington didn't bow, didn't flinch. "With respect, Your Majesty," he replied. "It is you who has forgotten yours." The words struck like a blade. "You stand here with a criminal," he continued. "A man who has burned ships, stolen from kingdoms, and now dares to steal the queen herself." The guards tightened their formation. Swords raised. "Seize him," Harrington ordered. In an instant, everything exploded into motion. Adrian drew his blade. Fast, precise, deadly. The guards hesitated, because they knew who he was. The pirate no one had ever captured. "Stay back," Adrian warned, his voice low and dangerous. But Isabella stepped between them. "Stop," she shouted. Everything froze. Every sword. Every breath. "No one moves," she commanded. Her voice carried power. Authority. Because she wasn't just a woman in love. She was a queen. And now, she had to choose which one she would be. Harrington's eyes narrowed. "Your Majesty, if you protect him, you stand against your own kingdom." Isabella's chest rose and fell. Her heart screamed one thing. Her crown demanded another. She looked at Adrian, the man who made her feel alive, free, real. Then she looked at her people, her guards, her kingdom, everything she had sworn to protect. Tears burned in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "Lower your weapons," she said slowly. A pause. To him, shock rippled through the guards. Even Adrian stared at her, because this wasn't the choice anyone expected. "I will not allow bloodshed on my land tonight," she continued. Harrington stepped forward, anger rising. "You would let him go?" Isabella met his gaze, unshaken. "No," she said. Then her voice dropped, softer, but far more dangerous. "I'm going with him." Silence. Complete. The world seemed to stop. "Your Majesty," Harrington whispered, disbelief in his voice. But she didn't look at him anymore. Her eyes stayed on Adrian. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't choosing duty. She was choosing herself, choosing love. And everything was about to change. Adrian stepped closer, slowly, like he didn't want to break the moment. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. Isabella took a breath, then placed her hand in his. Yes. Behind them, the kingdom held its breath, because their queen had just abandoned her crown for a pirate. And somewhere in the distance, the sea roared louder than ever, as if it knew this love story was no longer forbidden. It was unstoppable. The silence broke, with chaos. "Stop them!" Lord Harrington's voice echoed across the cliffs as guards surged forward. Steel clashed. Boots thundered. Torches fell into the sand. But Queen Isabella didn't look back. Her hand was locked in Captain Adrian Blackwood's. And for the first time in her life, she was running toward something, not away. The path to the shore blurred beneath her feet. The roar of the sea grew louder. Closer. Freedom within reach. "Are you afraid?" Adrian asked as they reached the waiting boat. She looked at him, breathless, shaken, alive. "Yes," she admitted. A small, trembling smile formed. But not of this. That was enough. He helped her into the boat, jumped in after her, and within seconds, they were cutting through the dark water toward his ship. Behind them, the kingdom burned with fury. By morning, the truth spread like wildfire. The queen had fled, with a pirate. Some called her a traitor. Some called her reckless. Some whispered she had been bewitched. But none of them knew the truth. That for the first time, she had chosen her own life. Days passed at sea. The world she once knew felt distant now, fading. On the ship, Isabella was no longer Your Majesty. She was just Isabella. She learned the rhythm of the waves, the language of the crew, the freedom of a life without walls. And Adrian, he didn't treat her like something fragile or something untouchable. He treated her like an equal, like someone who belonged beside him, not behind him. But freedom came with a cost. One night, a storm rolled in, violent, unforgiving. The ship rocked dangerously. Waves crashed like thunder. Crew members shouted. Sails tore. And in the middle of it all, Isabella lost her footing. She slipped, but Adrian caught her, pulling her back just before she hit the deck. For a moment, everything else disappeared. Maybe Harrington was right, she whispered, shaken. Maybe I don't belong here. Adrian's expression hardened. No, he said firmly. You just haven't realized your strength yet. Lightning flashed across the sky. You gave up a kingdom, he continued. She shook her head. I lost it. Adrian stepped closer, rain pouring between them. No, he said again, his voice softer this time, stronger. You chose something greater. Her eyes met his. And what if I was wrong, she whispered. A beat of silence. Then Adrian did something unexpected. He stepped back. If you were, he said quietly, I'll take you back. Her breath caught. What? I'll sail you home, he continued. No chains. No expectations. A pause. Because I don't want you here, unless it's where you truly want to be. That was the moment. The real test. Not the guards. Not the kingdom. Not the storm. But this. Choice. Freedom. Truth. Isabella looked around. At the raging sea. At the life she had stepped into. At the man standing in front of her, willing to lose her, just so she could be free. And suddenly, she knew. She stepped forward, through the storm, through the doubt, and took his hand again. I already chose, she said. Adrian's eyes searched hers. No crown, she continued. No palace. A small smile broke through the storm. Just you. For a moment, the world felt still, even as the storm raged around them. Because love like that didn't need calm seas to survive. It needed truth. And they had finally found it. The storm eventually passed. And when the sun rose, it didn't shine on a queen. It shone on a woman who had chosen her own destiny. And a pirate who had found something more valuable than treasure. Her